fuck?
Welcome to part 2 of the Halloween special. Horror movies have a very special place in my heart. In part 1, I talked about the subgenre I christened fun horror, a genre dedicated to frightening you but in an exhilarating and often goofy way. Today I want to take a step further into the dark, further away from laughs and leisure and closer to broken bones and grisly gore. Today we're going to talk about the next subgenre I love, survival horror. Survival horror is just slightly beyond fun horror, with several things overlapping. Most slasher films can bounce from one to the other, from scene to scene. Basically all horror has some aspect of survival tactics in them, as no matter what the subgenre is, our heroes are trying to make it out alive. What separates survival horror from most others is the time dedicated to articulating how our heroes are going to make it out, and what the obstacles are before them. In several slasher films, the last 15 to 20 minutes are a Tom and Jerry-esque escape from one set piece to the next, frantically trying to survive. In this category of films, however, the bulk of the entire film is dedicated to this back and forth. There are several remarkable films I could talk about, some of which at a later date might even get their own videos. I love movies like The Descent, where a group of women traverse deep into a mysterious cave just to find out that leaving it might not be an option. Hush is an incredible movie from my favorite horror creator, Mike Flanagan, that shows the machinations of a deaf woman against a violent intruder. Movies like Ready or Not, Crawl, Haunt, Green Room, The Ritual. There are so many great films to talk about, but today I want to focus on one that blew my mind with its inventiveness. You're Next. You're Next is a very simple concept brought expertly to the screen. Horror is a great playground for simple concepts to really thrive when crafted thoughtfully. The premise of this film is just that a relatively estranged family get together one evening and are set upon by murderous intruders. Where this film really excels is in the writing of two things. One, the characters, and two, the cat and mouse game between the two parties, the family and the intruders. The characters in this movie are so well written, but in the least flashy way imaginable. You can understand that the parents are pretty distant, that the mom is a little manic, and that the dad is very timid just from a few moments together. Aaron and Crispin have a very believable romance. It's warm and friendly without overly sappy moments, much like a real relationship. Drake and Kelly have this strained marriage. You can feel a distance, a lack of love there, even though it's never explicitly said. The most impressive writing in the whole movie is the familial relationships. You feel the reality of it so clearly. The snide tension between Drake and Crispin just makes you feel so uncomfortable because it feels so authentic. The cold, very formal relationship between the sons and the father tells you about their upbringing more than any kind of expository dialogue or flashbacks could. You can tell right off the bat that Amy and Felix were brought up in a different culture than the older two. Amy feels like a spoiled princess and Felix like a entitled prince, whereas the other two brothers have a lot of resentment. Drake has this cutting nature that feels very genuine. Genuine is the best word I can think of to describe the character writing in You're Next. The dinner scene especially. It feels like a very real night with this family.
A little unprofessional. What?
The way they snipe at each other and twist around each other until the tension finally explodes. Just genius. The depiction of the characters rides this remarkable line of relatable enough that we follow their characters, but just despicable enough that we don't cry when they start getting picked off. In order for a truly convincing survival horror movie, we as the audience need to have all the pieces ourselves. Throughout the first act, this film layers everything we need to know very subtly. They mention how the house is isolated, that they only have the one neighbor, that there have been workers in and out of the house, all in a matter of seconds. We know right from the start that the house is a labyrinthine and gargantuan maze, that there are many corners and many shadows. We get to see how many windows are on the main floor, how vulnerable the family constantly is. The handheld direction of this movie, without many tracking shots or wide angles, makes us feel like we are deep in this situation with the family. Every shot has this shaky, intimate, glamourless feel. After a while, it doesn't even feel like a movie, it feels like an experience. The shots going in and out of focus, the close-ups of wounds and faces, they all keep us deep inside the story. But we need to talk about Erin. Erin is the best thing to come out of survival horror, maybe ever. I would watch a dozen movies about her going state to state, defeating every horror killer and monster in the book. What separates this movie from so many others in the genre is how smart the characters are. When they do act stupidly, like having the mom go up to her room by herself, they pay the price. Every decision has a price. That's one of the things that really draws me to this genre. Survival is all about a cascading of correct decisions, and Erin keeps making them, and everybody else keeps doing the opposite. Every death comes from a bad decision, not plot convenience. Tariq got too close to the window. The mom went up by herself. Amy ran out instead of hunkering down, and also not from superpowered villains. I love that Erin can actually fight them. They're tough but not impossible to defeat. The playing field feels more level, thus making the movie more intriguing. The movie never breaks its own rules. There's no invincible heroes or teleporting villains. No one is magically saved. The icing on top of this movie, in addition to the great character writing and meticulous cat and mouse game, is the genius level twist. I remember audibly gasping when Felix and Z are revealed to be in on it the whole time. But it's layered so well throughout the movie. Felix and Z casually standing by the door, Felix talking about the jammer.
Yeah, they must be using a jammer. What? A cell phone blocker. They're illegal, but you can get them on the internet for like 30 bucks.
Felix recommending someone run out.
Somebody should make a run for the cars and try to go
No!
get help.
And helping Amy set up her dash.
They're not going to be expecting her to be coming out full speed.
Felix being confused by Erin. Felix and Z running instead of helping Erin.
Thanks for the help, by the way.
Hey, you seem to have a handle on it.
And once we know who the real players are, but Erin doesn't, now we have another layer of tension. Each moment with Felix and Z is now filled with so much subtext. They're both trying to figure out what she's capable of, what she knows, how they can get the angle on her.
How did you learn all this stuff?
We get the bare minimum we need about Erin to make her not a Mary Sue, but not so much that the movie gets bogged down with origins and exposition.
I grew up on a survivalist compound.
I love the little humanizing moment with Felix when he's stabbing Drake.
Would you just die already? This is hard enough for me.
It's not enough for us to like him, but just enough for us to feel a little conflicted about all that is going on. But as the film begins to really build into a finale, we start to see why Erin deserves her own franchise. I love when she just jumps out the window. It isn't slow and tense, it's just this primal reaction to her surroundings. And it costs her. The busted knee and the glass wounds. And oh man, the brilliance of the scene when the guy steps on the nail. I love the simple foreshadowing. So much has happened already since they set out those boards that you almost forget. But once he steps on the board, it all comes flooding back. And then the throat punch, Erin being ready to just scrap at the drop of a hat is so hardcore. And the strobe light kill, and to top it all off with the kitchen brawl. Yes, the water gag is amazing. Calling back to Straw Dogs.
It's not even hot, you dumb bitch.
The blender kill, might be the most vicious thing I've ever seen. Man, the brutality, the grit, the exhaustion all amalgamates into a great finale. Then the final and most ultimate twist, Crispin. And this little moment suddenly becomes genius.
I've never seen you act like this before.
Crispin had no idea that Erin was going to disrupt all his carefully laid plans.
Where's Felix?
I stuck a blender in his head and killed him.
After all the violence and the tension and the confusion, the ultimate blow Erin takes is his betrayal. I honestly never saw that coming. He was such a feeble worm that it didn't even start to cross my mind. But now all that's crossing my mind is how much I want her to kill him. And then bang, the cops that were set up to be on their way are here. Man, this whole movie is just a blood-spattered sequence of setup and payoff. A bone-crunching, eye-stabbing Rube Goldberg machine, all falling like dominoes into a gory last moment. So freaking good. I often ask myself why I love survival horror so much. It's really the meeting point of action movies and horror, mixed into a cocktail with the constant question, if I was in this situation, what would I do? Slashers are fun. I adore the slasher genre, but the victims don't ever really have a chance at surviving in those. You don't watch Friday the 13th to see how they overcome Jason. You watch it to see how Jason kills them. But in survival horror, you can't help but wonder what you would do if this was all happening in your life. I remember the first time watching this with my family. We ended up talking for hours afterwards about what we would do differently, or what we would do if it was at our parents' house. I think every man, maybe every person, I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else's experience, but at least every man I know has these strange scenarios he runs on repeat about what he would do in different life or death situations. There's a peculiar male fantasy about being in dire danger and being able to fight or think your way out of it. Films like You're Next give us the platform to live out these internal scenarios in a visceral, nail-biting way, and for that, I will always love survival horror. Subscribe for parts 3 and 4 of my Halloween special. Like this video and let me know in the comments what your favorite survival horror movie is. Farewell.